Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 8 of the Former Action Guys podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Cramer. Tonight, we were supposed to have a guy on that I met who is was a jet pilot during the Vietnam War and was shot down. We had some scheduling conflicts. He had last minute. He got pulled. So he wasn't able to make the recording. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to sit here and talk about myself a little bit, which I wasn't planning on doing, but it is what it is, you know? So, anyway, first off, hey, thanks for the people that have been listening in at this point. I think we're up to over 1,200 downloads and streams of the podcast, which is awesome. I appreciate everybody listening in, and, the feedback I've gotten is cool, too, so I'm going to read off a few things here in just a minute that I've received from some of the listeners and everything, and feel free to hit me up. I just opened up a Twitter account for the page so that you can hit me up there and we can be in contact, pretty regularly pretty quickly if you want to hit me up. It's Former Action Guys, but it's the number 4 MER Action Guys. And I'm sure if you just look up Former Action Guys, if you spell it out correctly on Twitter, the page will pop up, but the page is actually at number 4 MER Action Guys. So hit me up on there and I'll read some of your feedback, good and bad. I'll take everything and read it on air. So, or feel free to hit me up also on Instagram under my J Cramer graphics page. That's my, it's a freelance graphic design company I run, I guess, or whatever. It's just me, so I don't know, whatever you want to call it. The page itself is just a bunch of, videos that I think are cool. So everything from stuff going on in Afghanistan or like old videos from Vietnam or, dudes wrecking hard on their skateboard and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of everything. I know it's supposed to be my page for graphic design, but I don't really advertise myself too much on there. But hey, feel free to check it out. It's J Cramer Graphics on Instagram. So yeah, anyway. So from the Instagram page, I got a message from Tony.fit92. He said, bro, sick fucking podcast. Just listen to the first HM3. Good shit. Hey, HM3, that's Doc Emil. He is a good dude, solid dude. I hope everyone enjoyed his podcast. And again, like I said before, I appreciate him coming on and telling his story. If you haven't listened to it, spoiler alerts and stuff like that, but you need to go back and check it out. Getting blown up in the first month of your very first deployment. I don't know how I think everyone will react to that differently and whatever, but it's crazy. Like, I say it's crazy, but it's crazy that, one, he survived it, and then 2, he fought to go back. And it's not crazy, honestly. Like, I think we talked about it some on the show and stuff like that. It's more common than uncommon, I think, in your ground combat units like that, because dudes are so close to each other and stuff like that, and you just want to kind of get in a fight. But it's just, mind-blowing, I guess would be a better way to put it, that happened to him, and then he turns around and pumps back out, 2 more times to the Singing Valley, which, I guess you just kind of have to have gone there to experience it. It's just an interesting place, with some weird dynamics and stuff like that, but yeah, it was a good show. I appreciate Tony.fit92, for hitting me up and letting me know that you appreciate that show. So that first podcast also, we cut that into 2 episodes because it was so long. But I think I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing and keep the long form podcast. I think it makes more sense. If people want, I know some people are like, hey, I can only listen to 30 minutes at a time. But in my mind, I was thinking, okay, this is too long. I need to shorten it, so I'm going to cut it into 2 episodes. But in retrospect, you can just pause it and come back to it later. So I guess it's not really necessary to put it in 2 episodes. So it's better for tracking people, like how many people have come through the show and the actual, I don't know. It just makes more sense. So I think I'm going to keep doing that. But I appreciate, again, Tony.fit92 on Instagram hitting me up. And then after that, I'm going to assume it's Danny Sticks, with Sticks, no I. So Danny Sticks, STCKS, says, good evening. My name is Dan, and I'm not going to say his last name. Second Anglico from 2006 to 2010. I wanted to say good job on the podcast. I've listened to 3 so far. Really good format. Hard to cut away when listening. I would keep doing them the same way. No need to shorten them like you mentioned before. Okay, so there you go. The reason I'm reaching out... Oh, never mind. And that's just some stuff about the graphic design page. So, thanks again. Hey, Danny Sticks, I agree. I think we're going to keep the long form. So what's going to happen at some point is I'm going to go through most of the people I know. I'll probably start to run out of guests to have. Maybe not run out, but, you know, I people have to want to tell their story. Like, I know people that have awesome stories. I'm sure a lot of my listeners know people that have awesome stories. But it's not on us to tell their story, I guess. It's, you know, we got to wait on them to want to be able to tell it. So, yeah. So, anyway, at some point, guys are going to come back on. So, some episodes, the initial episodes I see being longer because we're getting initial stories from guys. And, you know, there's just a lot to tell, especially for somebody that did 8, 12, 20 years or more. So, the initial ones are going to be kind of long. And then I won't be surprised if, as I have people come back on, those ones are down closer to like the hour range and stuff like that. But I don't mind it being that long. I listen to a lot of podcasts like Joe Rogan. And, Joe Rogan will go from 2 to 3 hours plus sometimes. And it doesn't bother me because I'll just hop in and out. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing for this podcast. I think people kind of like the deep dive, like Danny Sticks, and mentioned, like, you can get into the weeds with guys about some of their service and stuff like that. And I like to highlight stuff that's original, kind of like when we had Archer come on. He was the first officer, so he could tell us about his experience in OCS and stuff like that. Because myself, I don't know anything about it. I went to boot camp at Parris Island, so stuff like that. That's like original. Like, you're the first, like him, helicopter pilot, first officer. I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper there just because it's new for all of us. And then maybe later on we can build up, more questions and conversation off of those original podcasts and stuff like that. But, we'll just see how it goes. But anyway, our next comment was from Hubbard 1080p. He said, "Hey man, just wanted to say that I absolutely fucking love your podcast. Literally just happened across one of them the day or week that you posted the first one, and I've been hooked ever since. Slowly working my way through them all. The super long podcasts are great because it allows for so much more of the story to be told. Really, really digging it. I got a quick question for you. Did you ever work with any U.S. Air Force TCPs? If so, ever thought about having one on and doing a little comparison episode between y'all and the Air Force?" Yeah, definitely. So I have worked with Air Force TCPs. Different levels of guys that have done it, like your STS guys and your regular TCP guys and stuff like that. Like your, TCP, CCTs and stuff like that. Most of them are all JTAC qualified. Sometimes they're not all JTAC qualified. They're a little different, which would be a great thing to come on or have them come on and talk about. And I'm totally down with it. So if anyone knows an Air Force TCP guy, CCT, PJ, any of that, honestly, I'm down for suggestions, and I would definitely love to have somebody come on and we can talk about some of the stuff that's different, the differences between us and them. I will say that having worked with them, Marine JTACs tend to have more control over the aircraft. They are more directive of what they want the aircraft to do, which you can, depending on the JTAC and his experience level and how he's doing it, like if he's being too restrictive, then he's obviously restricting the aircraft's ability to do what he needs to do. The Air Force guys are more like, hey, there's your target, go for it. Like, how are you going to attack it? Whereas a Marine J, from what I've seen, and that may not be completely, on true, which would be a great reason to have somebody on to talk about it. But from what I've seen, they're more like, hey, there's your target, we're here, kill it kind of deal. And Marines are more like, hey, here I am, here's your target, this is the ordnance I want you to use, this is the direction I want you to come in, this is the direction I want you to leave, and then, blah, 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 and on. So, it's just a cultural difference, I guess, and I think Marines do more call for fire. I know we definitely do more naval gunfire. Obviously, it just kind of comes with the territory, but yeah. So, I would definitely love to have a Air Force TCP, JTAC, CCT, any of those dudes come on. So if anyone knows one that has an interesting story or they just want to come on and kind of compare and contrast our different career paths and stuff, tell them to hit me up. Shoot me an email, formeractionguyspodcast@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter, again, at formeractionguys. That's number 4, MER, Action Guys. And then on Instagram at @JCramerGraphics. Yeah, so I got another comment here on Facebook on my post that I posted up about the Twitter, letting people know that, hey, I opened up a new Twitter account. This is from Leo. I'm not gonna put people's last names out there, just because I wouldn't want someone putting my last name out there if, I didn't give consent, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, started listening yesterday on my walks. Good stories and insights so far. Also, on a light note, between podcasts 1 and 2, there may be a drinking game. Just take a drink every time Doc says, "What's it called?" And looking forward to listening to future episodes. Doc Emil does say, "What's it called?" That's like his like phrase that he uses when he's I say that's his phrase when he's using when he's thinking about what he's trying to say. But yeah, it's funny. He's aware, and we're all aware. We give him shit about it, but it's cool. So anyway, like I said, hit me up. Feel free to send me messages at the email I just said, formeractionguyspodcast@gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on @JCramerGraphics on Instagram. And I will read your comments on air, good and bad. We can hash out some stuff or whatever. Yeah, it'll be a good time. But again, tonight, like I said, I was supposed to have that jet pilot come on. We had some scheduling differences. Last minute, he had to drop out. So I'm just going to go through some stuff here. Also, in the future, I've already planned out. I got another one of my friends that was a JTAC over at 10th Marines. He did a few deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. He was actually, I want to say he did a deployment with 1st Anglico in maybe 2010-ish, maybe before that, maybe like 2008-ish time frame, to Iraq. And then I think that's where I met him. It was at 10th Marines later on. And so he's supposed to come on. I'm supposed to record an episode with him. And then another guy that was with 1st Anglico, who is so he was a Navy no-glow in JTAC with 1st Anglico. So he got attached as a no-glow, and then he went to TCP school, became a JTAC, and then did his time there, and then he went back to the schoolhouse. So people that are in that community will probably know who I'm talking about. Good dude, solid guy. So we're going to be recording also. So those are some of my upcoming ones. But like I said, tonight is just me. And what's my story? So we kind of alluded to it with my buddy Michael Hanthorne. He was talking about him and I, we went to high school together and stuff like that. And he joined the Marine Corps early, right after, not even after high school, in the middle of high school. He was one of those guys that graduated in December, went to boot camping, and was back before his class actually graduated and stuff like that. And I was a senior in 2001. I watched September 11th. I watched the Twin Towers on TV at home. I was sitting at home. The seniors in high school, we didn't have to go to school that day because state testing was taking place. We had already done it as juniors and below, so we just didn't have school. So we were at home, and one of my buddies came over and was like, "Hey man, I think like a building got hit." And he initially said the World Trade Center, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell that is. I live in Indiana. You're talking not beginning of the internet days, but we didn't have a home computer. We got on the internet a little bit, so it wasn't like, it's not like now where I can Google anything I wanted. If you didn't know about it, you didn't know about it. Like, I had an encyclopedia set that I used to read as a kid, so that's where I got my information from. So when I was first told, like, hey, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center, my buddy came over and told me that, and I'm like, really? Like, okay. And, not really knowing, like, the effect of it. And then we change a channel, and we're like, oh, shit, like, this building is, like, legitimately fucked right now. It's been hit. And we're watching it, and then the second aircraft comes in and hits the building, and we're like, what the fuck, man? And I remember at the time I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's, so we went to McDonald's to get some food, and I told them, I'm like, dude, did you guys see what happened? So some of them were like, no. So we went back to the break room, turned the TV on, and that's when we saw the towers fall. And, it was just a crazy moment to have seen it on TV. I couldn't imagine being there. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. So anyway, like I said, I was a senior in high school. I'm kind of from a military family. I was saying from a military family. My dad was in the Army. He served in Desert Storm. He joined at the tail end of Vietnam, but he didn't get sent to Vietnam. He was sent to Germany. He was a Patriot missile repairman, or he worked with Patriot missile. I don't know if he worked. He'll probably give me shit about this, but he did something with not Patriot missiles, damn it. Nike Air Defense System missiles, I think is what he worked on. Like I said, I'll get shit about it. My grandfather on my dad's side was in the Army Air Corps, which turned into the Army, the Air Force, excuse me. He wasn't in World War II. You know what? I don't know I honestly don't know what he did during that war, but he has a victory medal. He did. He passed away. Obviously, he was an older gentleman. Passed away a few years ago, but he had a World War II victory medal. And my dad, last time I went home this summer for the cross country road trip I did, he gave me a bunch of his photos, and he had a bunch of photos of like being in Japan after the war, working on P-51s and stuff like that. It's like them on the flight lines out in Japan. I don't know. It's just weird, like seeing these old school photos, and I'm talking about so old, like the original photos. You can tell there's a bunch of the original ones, and then he turned around and he had them redeveloped into a better format, probably in the 60s. But the original ones are these like 3-inch photos. I don't know if they're from like that Brownie camera, something like that, but super old school. So he was in the Army Air Corps, and then my grandfather on my mother's side was in the Army also. And he was in between, I want to say he was in between World War II and Korea, or around that time frame. So anyway, I guess I'm kind of from a military family. When I was a little kid, I grew up watching old school war movies, watching like, I couldn't even tell you, like I'm going blank right now, which is blowing my mind, but like Sands of Iwo Jima, I obviously seen that one. All Midway was a big one, Bridge on the River Kwai, stuff like that. That's the kind of movies I watched, The Great Escape, Green Berets. Those were the movies as a kid I was watching. So I was like, oh man, like the military, it's like super like, and my dad was in the Army and stuff. And, I distinctly remember him deploying when I was a kid, to go to, Kuwait or wherever. I think they flew into Saudi Arabia, I think, and went from Saudi Arabia to liberate Kuwait, and then he went into Iraq for a little bit. He worked for I want to say it was the 377th Combat Support Hospital at that time. He had switched jobs, and but that's what my dad did in Desert Storm. So I remember all that as a kid. So obviously that had an effect on me, and I have that, I don't know, I guess that I don't know, the urge to serve, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. It's just, I felt like that was kind of my calling, and that's what I should do. And all the way up until high school, probably through maybe my sophomore year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to join the Army. I'm going to go be an Army Ranger. I want to be a sniper, blah, 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 blah. And then I ended up, I don't know where I got it or who gave it to me, but I read Marine Sniper. And I was like, dude, fuck the Army. Like, I'm going to join the Marines, man. And like, this sounds cool. And this is like in high school. I'm like, all right, I'm going to join the military. There was no talk of college. Not that I don't think I could have gone to college, but I just couldn't. Like, I don't think my family could have afforded it. And it was just one of those things that just honestly never was discussed in my household about even going to college. So, yeah, I mean, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to join the Marine Corps, or I'm going to join the military. And this is, like I said, even before I would have even thought about college, I was already thinking about the military. So it wasn't like a big deal. So anyway, I get fast forward senior year, September 11th happens, like, oh shit. So that same week, me and a few buddies went down to the recruiter's office, talked to our first recruiter. I don't remember his name. He ended up getting kicked out of the Marine Corps. And at some point, I turned 18 in 2001 in December. My birthday is at the end of the year. So before I graduated high school, I turned 18. And after I'd gone to that recruiter the first time, I got busted with weed. And Indiana, it was like, this is obviously, they charge you as a Class D felony for a, what do they call it? Maintaining a common nuisance, which means like having something illegal in your household or whatever. So I got busted with weed, and that delayed my entry into the military. So that's when Michael, him and I, we ended up going down, or I think around that same time, I thought, him and I were talking. He was a year behind me in school, so he had a little bit of time. Then I was like, all right, I'll go with him, once everything's good. Once I'm off probation, once I finish everything. Ended up not happening, and then he ended up finding out he was going to leave, right after he finished high school in December of 2003, I believe. And so I'm on the tail end of my probation, finishing everything up. I'm almost done. Then I'm like, dude, I'm following you, man. I'll be right behind you. And we have his going away party at my place. I live on my own. I moved out when I was like 3 months away from graduating from high school. I think I moved out with a couple buddies and we got our own place because I was 18. So, anyway, so we're having a going away party for him at my place, and we would have these massive parties. Like all these people would show up, and which was cool at the time, but at the same time, like in retrospect, it's like, who the hell was at my house? Like you don't even realize. You got 40 or 50 people here and you don't even know like half of them. So anyway, we're having a massive party. Some girl got drunk, whatever, decided to leave, saw a cop, pulled over and sat there. And then when they asked where she came from, she told them about our place. They came back to my place. We got busted for underage drinking at this time because I was on probation and I was almost done. And I was like, all right, I'm going to, as soon as this is done, I'm joining the Marine Corps. At this time, I was like, completely clean. I was drinking obviously because that was it though, but no weed or anything like that. And I never really did anything else like the other drugs. I was never into it. It was not my thing. You see too many people get too fucked up on it. So, it was never something I was interested in, but anyway, so the cops come and fuck man, I get busted again, which sucked. And what saved me was, the funny thing was Michael escaped. Michael, like someone said the cops were coming up to the front door and everybody started running and everyone ran out the back and we had this field behind the house. We were on the edge of town. So there was like this big ass, like couple acre field behind our place. So people started running out there and Michael got away but I was running out the back door and someone was like, dude, there's cops out back. So we ran into the basement. We ended up hiding in the basement. We were there for like over an hour. We could hear them pumping the keg out and everything else before the cops realized. Someone said, one of the cops asked what this one door was, and they're like, oh, that's the door to the basement. The cops didn't even realize there was a basement. So there's like 8 of us sitting down there thinking that we had gotten away with it. Anyway, cops come down, arrest us, or get us all together. Mostly kids, almost everybody got released except for those of us that lived there. And so I got arrested again. And I'm like, fuck, now I'm really screwed because I'm on probation still. I'm at the very end. I was about to finish my drug and alcohol classes that I got assigned for my first one. I had to go in and tell them, like, yeah, I got arrested again. Sorry. And I felt like a real scumbag because, it's like, dude, I just got arrested twice and I'm 18. Like, what the fuck am I doing, man? And, so I had to go meet with the prosecutor because it was the second time I had gotten arrested. I didn't have a lawyer. I'm like 18 or 19. I don't know anything about anything. I think I still work at McDonald's. Maybe not. I might have left that job and went on to my next job, which was like working in telemarketing. But, I didn't make enough money to go. It was like $500 for a lawyer, and I'm making like $8 an hour or something like that. Whatever it was in 2002. And so I have to go meet with the prosecutor, and I'm doing it by myself. I go to his office, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting on him. And while I'm sitting there reading Marine Sniper, because I got nothing else to do. And this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've probably read this book. And the prosecutor walks in, and he's like, oh, hey, what's going on? You're Justin. Go ahead and come on in. And I was like, all right. And I'm walking in. He's like, hey, that's a good book. And I'm like, yeah, I really like it. This is like, I told him, I was like, this is like the fourth time I've read it. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I'm planning on joining the Marine Corps once all this is done. I didn't even, I was like, I know I'm getting arrested the second time for weed and stuff. So what happened was, I guess I should have backed up to that. When the cops came, people ditched their drugs in our house and then ran. So they found like weed and like a bag of coke and something else like stuck in the, shoved down into the couch cushions and stuff like that. And obviously the only people that can claim it are the people that live there, which is why we got arrested. So now I got busted for this other stuff. And I'm like, dude, and I'm telling this prosecutor and I'm like, yeah, like I was at the end of my probation. I'm trying to join the Marine Corps. And he told me, he's like, all right, if you're serious, like, have your recruiter give me a call. Because he obviously wanted to make sure I wasn't just saying that to get out of any kind of charges and stuff. So I told my recruiter, the recruiter gave him a call, and he reduced it down to like 6 months of supervised probation and then like 6 months of unsupervised probation. And then after that, I could join. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, that's cool. I was like, I appreciate it. Super nice of him. He honestly could have put me in jail, or he could have put me on something like way longer supervised probation at least. But he helped me out. So anyway, now finish up all my probation and stuff like that. I'm ready to go. Go down to the recruiter's office, like, hey, let's do this. Go down to MEPS, and they're like, hey, you've been arrested twice. You have to go talk to the shrink. You have to go talk to the dude to make sure you're not like a drug abuser and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, I just got busted with a little bit of weed. Like, and only one time was at mine, like, okay, but whatever, here we go. So go in, talk to this dude, and I don't even really know what I'm supposed to do here. I'm just like, he just asked me questions about, am I dating anyone? Do I have a job? Do I have a car? He's basically trying to see like where I'm at in my life. Am I ready? Am I a responsible person? And dude, we get done and he's like, he denied me for a year. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was so pissed. I was super pissed. And I honestly, like, I was so pissed that I didn't speak to the recruiter on the way back because I thought I was good. I thought, like, this was it. Like, we're going down here. Like, this is just a check in the box, and then I'm good to go. I had a job. I was working. I had stuff. I had a place. It wasn't like I needed to join the Marine Corps, but it's something I really wanted to do, and it's something I had always wanted to do. So I was just super pissed. And I remember coming back and just fucking leaving. Like, didn't talk to the recruiter, just bounced, pissed off, and I just go on thinking like, fuck it, whatever. And I just go work and hang out with my buddies, and I'm partying, 3 days a week. I live next to Purdue University, so I was basically going out with my friends Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights just because, that what else are you going to do when you're like 20, 21, 22 years old and everyone's partying? So, well, 20 to 21, 19 to 21, we'll say. And so I'm working while my buddies are going to college, and yeah, it was just how it was. And Michael had joined, and he had gone on his, I want to say, yeah, he had gone on his first deployment. He had went to Iraq, and I really felt like an asshole. I was like, dude, I talked this dude into joining the Marines, and now I'm back here at home, fucking working, like doing whatever, and he's going to Iraq. And this was in 2004 when he went to Fallujah, and he ended up being on the mortuary affairs team, cleaning up dead bodies, through right like he said. If you haven't heard the podcast, he's next to the house that the grunts are fighting in, and they're pulling out the dead insurgents from the house before that. And then as they clear that house, they're bounding up with them. They're going up one house behind these dudes that are fighting. And, obviously they're taking their own contact and stuff like that. And at the time, being in the States, I know that there's a big fight going on, but I don't realize that Michael's in it, and I don't realize the extent of it and stuff like that until he came back and we kind of talked about it and stuff. But yeah, I just kind of felt like an asshole. I was like, dude, if something happened, like I would have, I don't know. I would have felt terrible. I don't know how I could have ever spoken to his parents again or anything like that. Like, I would have just felt so bad that I talked him into joining and then I couldn't join. So, time went on, and I was just like, I started having dreams about it. I was like, dude, like, I'm having dreams about going overseas and all this other stuff, and it was really fucking with me. And I was like, dude, all right, I got to try one more time, and if it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. And so when I knew that it had been a year, whatever it was, the psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever it was I went to talk to, I went back I called the recruiter. I called him. I'm like, hey, what's going on? This is, my name's Justin Cramer. And they're like, all right, hey, how's it going, man? I was like, how's it going, man? I want to join the Marine Corps. And they're like, all right, cool. Like, do you want to come down? I'm like, here's the deal, man. I was like, I've already come down before, and I kind of explained the situation. And I was like, here's the deal. I want to join. I want to go infantry, and I want to leave as soon as possible. And the dude's like, fucking come on down, man. Like, imagine being a recruiter and some dude calls you and is like, hey, man, I want to join as soon as possible, and I want to go in the infantry, and I just want to get out of here. And they'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. So I go down there and I talk to them, and they're like, all right, hey, obviously you have some issues, that we have to go back and get waivers for and stuff like that. They're like, also, by the way, like, you just left last time, and we still have your high school diploma and your social security card and stuff like that. So I had, like I said before, I had bounced without even really talking to them. And the whole time they had all my original personal documents, because fucking 18 or 19, you don't even really think about that stuff. So I was like, oh shit, I'm glad you guys still have that on file. So they told me, they're like, all right, cool. Like, here's all the stuff. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do infantry. And they're like, ooh, it's going to be kind of hard. It's a hard thing to get right now. What else would you want to do? And I'm like, I'd be a forward observer, or I'd like to go tanks or something like that. That'd be cool. I was like, but honestly, I just want to do infantry. And they're like, all right, cool. We'll see what we can do. Recruiter, he's like, hey, we're going to go down to MEPS, and you're going to go through all your physical stuff again. And once you're good, then you're good. So I do all that. And I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, we're working the job. They just keep telling me, like, hey, it's not guaranteed yet. I haven't signed anything yet. I'm just doing all this other stuff. Maybe I had signed at that point. I don't remember. Anyway, but they keep just telling me, like, yeah, we're working it. And it's like, it gets to a point where it's like a week before I'm supposed to go to boot camp. And I'm like, hey, what's up with this infantry job? Like, what's going to happen? And they're like, yeah, no, it should be good, man. It should be good. Like, the other jobs, they're like, yeah, forward observer's not going to work. And I think it was because I had been arrested, so I probably couldn't get the clearance required for that and stuff like that. So, it gets to the day before, I'm supposed to be leaving. And I call, and my recruiter's not even there. It was another recruiter. He's like, no, man, you're all good, man. Yeah, come on down and everything. And so I come down the next day. I'm like, hey, the night before, I'm like, hey, everyone, I'm leaving. Say goodbye to the family. Say goodbye to everybody. And yeah, the next day I go down to MEPS, finish doing all my paperwork stuff there. And I'm sitting there, and these dudes, two stories about, I got a few stories about MEPS. One, I get down there and they're like, okay, what job do you want to do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what job do I want to do? Like, infantry. Like, they said I was good. And they're like, no, man, infantry, like, you can do infantry, but you're going to have to wait 6 months or, whatever it was. And I'm like, dude, I thought I was leaving for boot camp today. I sold my car. I moved out of my apartment. I quit my job. Like, I can't wait 6 months. I literally just got rid of everything to go to boot camp. And, it was just like, fuck, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, you could probably do supply or admin. And I'm like, fuck that. And I'm like, that sucks, man. I'm not joining the Marine Corps to sit behind a desk. And the guy's like, well, you can always go open contract. They pull a lot of infantry guys out of open contract. And I'm like, fuck open contract, man. I was like, man, I'll become a cook or a fucking mechanic. And they're like, well, no, I mean, if you want to leave today, man, these are your options. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, what am I supposed to do here? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to gamble it and go open contract. And sign the paperwork like a moron. I won't say I'm a moron, but, I said, well, kind of maybe. But sign the paperwork as open contract. And, shipped out the next day, Paris Island. Platoon 3060, Mike Company. 3rd Battalion. So, yeah. Anyway, but up to this point, I got a funny story, and then I'm gonna call it. This is a pretty good one. So, I'm a big dude. I've always been a big dude. I was a big dude in high school. I was a big dude when I was a kid. Like, they were recruiting me for football in high school, and I was like, fuck that. I'm from like at the time, I was like from a poor family, Like, so I wanted to make money. So instead of like playing football, which I had done since I was 5, I was going to work. I wanted to make, I started at making, I started as a newspaper boy. And then I started working at Burger King. And then after that, my buddies worked at McDonald's. Michael was one of those guys, Michael Hanthorne from the other podcast. And I was like, I can go over to McDonald's and make like 15 extra cents an hour also and hang out with my buddy. So I switched over to McDonald's and I worked there for a while. So yeah, in high school, I think I was telling somebody, it was earlier. I don't know why we were talking about it, but in high school, I left high school squatting 415 and benching 315. I was a big dude. So anyway, the point that I'm getting at is like when I'm getting ready to go to boot camp, there's still a weight restriction. It's not the same as when you're already in the Marine Corps, but there's still a weight restriction. I think for my height, it was like 225 or 235. I think it was 235. And I was like right on the line. And I'm like, man, like, I don't want to risk it because all this other shit's happened. All I need is like me being a pound over, keeping me from going to boot camp. So I talk to the recruiter. Obviously, they tell me go get some magnesium citrate. And for those that don't know what magnesium citrate is, it's like the worst laxative that you've ever had in your life. It's like this like mini bottle, not even I don't even know how big it is. It's too big. Like it's smaller than a Coke can, but it's so hard to even drink. It's just wretched. And you drink it, and then anything you've eaten since you were probably 3 years old gets blown out. So I'll leave it at that. So anyway, I go to Walmart to go get this explosive for my guts, and they don't have any. And I'm like, well, shit. Like, what else they got? And my girlfriend at the time, she was like, hey, look, they got these X-Lax chocolate bars. You should get those. And I'm like, whatever. That's not too bad. And I'm thinking of like, because I've had magnesium citrate before. And I'm thinking about how bad that tastes. And I'm like, yeah, I'd rather eat a chocolate bar than that shit again. So I get the chocolate bar. And I take it home. And this is like 2 days or something before I'm supposed to go to MEPS. It's like 2 days before. So that night, I'm reading the directions. It's like, hey, and it looks like a Hershey bar. You pull it out of the foil and it's got like little 8 bars on it or whatever. And the instructions say eat 2, up to 2 of the little bars or whatever, the little tabs you can break off. And I'm like, fuck that. I want to make sure I'm good. So I ate the whole thing. So you're probably thinking, why the hell would you eat the whole thing? And I don't know, man. I just thought that would be the best way to make sure that I make my weight before I go to boot camp. So I ate it that night. The next day, I get up, don't go to the bathroom. All day long, don't go to the bathroom. I think it was it was the fall. And then that night, I drove down to MEPS. They drove us down to MEPS that night. And they put us up in a hotel. And this is in Indianapolis. And I stayed in this hotel. And then the following day is when you go in and you finish doing your MEPS stuff and do your weigh in and all that stuff. And then you ship out from boot camp from there. And wake up the next morning, don't go to the bathroom. Like, so what are we at? We're over 24 hours at this point. We're at like 36 hours. And I go in, I make my weight, so I was fine. So that's the funny part, I guess, is that I didn't even need to eat the chocolate bar. So go in, make my weight, do all my stuff. Hey, it's go time. It's you get what you ask for. So now it's time to go to Paris Island. So I get on the plane. This is the first time I've ever been on a plane, and I flew from Indianapolis to Savannah, Georgia, And in Savannah, Georgia, that's where you go, and they round you up in Savannah, kind of like they do at San Diego, but instead of like the short drive you have for San Diego, the drive from Savannah is like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that to Parris Island. So they round us all up, they put us in a room, and they get rid of all the contraband items at that point. They're like, hey, empty your pockets, go ahead and get rid of any tobacco, get rid of any of this, just basically everything. And then you just sit in this room and wait. And something happened. I don't remember what it was. And there was like 6 of us. Or maybe it was like 8 of us. 6 or 8, whatever. They grabbed us and they're like, hey, you guys are going now. And they put us in a duty van. Because I think maybe we had too many people to fit in the actual full-up bus. So I took a duty van to Parris Island. And it wasn't nighttime. It was like late afternoon. Everyone that was coming in on bus were coming in at night. So I got there late afternoon, pulling in, and we're cruising. And the guys that were driving, there was like 2 dudes in Chucks. Actually, they were in Deltas, which is the dress blue trousers and the short sleeve khaki shirt. So they were in the dress blue Deltas, and they were pretty cool. They were just bullshitting with us, like, you guys ready? You guys prepped for this? Like, hey, it'll be okay. It's a mental game. Kind of giving us... They were cool about it. They weren't douchebags. They could have been complete dicks, and they weren't. So that was cool. And then I'll always remember, man, we're like, right when we're getting ready to pull up to Parris Island. And if you don't know, if you've never been to Parris Island, you like pull up, you go through the gate, and then you go through this like long, it's like a bridge, but it's over this swamp or whatever that is. And you just take this long road onto Parris Island itself. So as we're pulling up to the gate, Lose Yourself comes on, Eminem on the radio. And the dude, they pass us through, and the guy driving and stuff, they're like, hey, put your heads down. Because whenever you go anywhere on Parris Island as a recruit driving, they tell you to put your head down. So you can't see where you're going. That way, if you try to escape, it's harder to find your way off the island. So we're pulling on, our heads are down, and we know what's happening, and just Lose Yourself is just jamming in the background. And I'm just like, oh shit, like I'm getting pumped, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually fucking happening. And we pull up, and then the radio turns off, and I just hear the door open. And it's like, good job on me right now, the whole drill instructor thing. And yeah, so anyway, get out, do the whole footprint stuff like that, and then you go into receiving. And when you're going through the receiving, the first thing you do is you make the phone call home. This was pre-cell phone. I mean, it wasn't pre-cell phones, but it was like not everyone had a cell phone at this point. A lot of people did. I had like a Razor phone or something. I can't remember. It was like an old school. People were still using Nokias playing Snake back in this time. So we get in there, and you have to make the phone call back to your family to let them know that you arrived and that you're safe and stuff like that. So I get in there, and I call home. No one answers. I called 2 different numbers, and nobody's answering. And the drill instructor is just losing it on some dude, like 2 phones down from me, because he can't get a hold of somebody. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. So I just, I just pretend like I'm actually talking to someone, like a phone call went through, and I just hang up. So my family never received a phone call. They never got to talk to me. And then after that, they put you in like a classroom. Well, first they put you on this like box. They make you stand up on this box, has a light on it. And I think they check your arch to make sure your arch is good. And then after that, you're just going through this whole admin phase. This is your first day there, so they're like doing paperwork. You go to supply and pick up your uniforms and stuff like that. And one day I'll have a drill instructor on here, and they can tell you there's a procedure. To us, it seems like chaos, but there's an actual process that they go through. There's like a procedure, and everything is on purpose. And I want to say that we were up for like 36 hours. You're doing all this stuff for like 36 hours, just getting, like I said, getting uniforms, doing paperwork. Well, when they don't actively have you doing something, you're sitting in this classroom, and everyone's sitting there, and this is what happens. So we get there, make the phone call, do the foot thing, make sure my arches are good. Then they take us to the classroom, and you sit down, they come in, and they're like, hey, here's the paperwork, start filling out this first stuff, and they take it, and then they leave. And they had 2 videos playing the entire time, back to back. Like one would play, and then the other one would play. Then they would just go back and forth for 36 hours, and one was the dangers of Parris Island, and it was just a video talking about like sharks in the water and like crocodiles and how you can get stuck in the mud and drown and how people have died. And then the other one was the history of Paris Island. And it's basically just to be like, hey, don't fucking try to escape. Like, just get it over with. Go through boot camp. Don't try to fucking escape, because you're going to get eaten by sharks and get stuck in the mud and eaten by everything else. So you're sitting there watching this stuff. So we get there, go sit down, start doing paperwork. They're flipping out on us, obviously. Then the drill instructors leave, and we're watching this video, and all of a sudden, whoop, my stomach. I'm like, oh God, no fucking way. And I just hear this like, I just feel it twist, and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, no fucking way. I'm like gripping the desk. I'm gripping the desk, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Because I'm like, I can't just get up and go ask a drill instructor, like, walk out of the classroom. There's no one in there. Who the fuck is going to get up and walk out and be like, excuse me? Like, I'm not retarded. And, man, I'm sitting there, and I have never sweated. I'm just gripping the sides of my desk, and my stomach is just like red, like, let's do this. It's go time. You got 8 chocolate bars worth. Like, it's ready. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot be the kid that shits his fucking pants on the first day of boot camp. Like, this is not happening. And I would be sitting there, and I don't know who the people were around me, and they were probably like, what the hell is wrong with this dude? Because like I said, I'm gripping the sides of this desk, and I'm like, basically like white knuckle, like sweating, shaking, and just like trying to keep my butthole as tight as possible so I don't shit. And it was just like waves. I'm just like, oh my God. Like, okay. And then the drill instructor comes in, and he's doing something, and I'm like, I gotta ask. I'm like, so, sir, this recruit requests permission to make a head call, sir. And he's just like, who else needs to go to the head? And like almost all the hands raised. So everyone's like running up. So they get everybody. We all run up to the head, and everybody's basically going to go take a piss. I run in and just blow it. I'm not going to get into graphic, gross details like that, but you know what I'm talking about. I get done, and I'm like, thank God I made it. Like, Jesus Christ. And then we go back down to the classroom. We're doing something. Stomachs like twist. And I'm like, no way. Because now I'm having the same effects, but I can't ask the drill instructor to go to the head again. I just asked him. He'll be like, fuck you. No. And I'll tell you, that was some trying times. Like I said, just like before, gripping the desk, just white knuckles, sweat pouring down my face, shaking, just like, oh my God. Oh, okay. Just going through these waves of like, I'm about to shit myself. And, I think I waited like an hour or something, just going through this like miserableness, just absolutely miserable, and, go to the head again. But anyway, I thought that would be a pretty funny story to let you guys know. I don't know. Tell me what you think about it. Hit me up at Former Action Guys on Twitter. So that's the number 4 MER Action Guys. Or hit me up on J Cramer Graphics on Instagram. Or Former Action Guys Podcast at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. Like I said before, if you got somebody that you think's might have a good story or something like that, something, what I just told you was not combat stories. And the point of the podcast is it's the Former Action Guys podcast, and most, maybe not even most, but a lot of the stories are going to involve combat, but not everybody that was in the military went to combat. And not every story that's a good story. I feel like the story I just told was a pretty good story. Involves combat. So don't feel like if you have a story and you think that maybe it's not cool enough, it doesn't meet the same level as somebody else's story, fuck that. Everybody did less than somebody, and everybody did more than somebody else. And that's just the way you got to look at it. Like, you can't degrade your own service, because you did less than some people, but you did a lot more than other people. And people should know your story. So if you know somebody that has a good story, or you have one of yourself and you want to come on and tell it, hit me up at one of those links. Again, it's Former Action Guys Podcast at gmail.com. The number 4 MER Podcast on Twitter, or J Cramer Graphics on Instagram. And next week, I'm hoping to have this jet pilot on. If not, one of the other guys I talked about, either one of the two JTACs or one of the other guys, or maybe I'll just continue on with my own story. Who knows? But thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for spreading the word about it. I think I just checked a little bit ago. I've got 9 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate that. And make sure to check us out on Spotify, or spread the word on Spotify podcast, on Apple Podcast, on Google Play, and on the Spreaker app. And hey, have a good one, and I'll see you guys around at the next episode.